Good day and welcome to labor. So there's two kinds of labor, and I'm only going to deal with one right now. I'll briefly go over. You can see it. There's cost of direct labor, and then right beside it, the next tab is cost of indirect labor. We'll get to that in a second, but right now we're only going to deal with direct labor. Now, direct labor is anything that can be tied directly back to the sale. I'll give you an example. If I'm in manufacturing, let's say that I'm a Ford Motor Company and the line is moving. It's a manufacturing line and I start over here in my window of opportunity, and as the car comes down the line at a X number of feet per minute, my job is to take and insert the driver's side front seat. And the guy working beside me inserts the driver's side back seat. So I have that given slot, that given window in order to do my job. On the other side of the car is somebody else inserting the passenger side front seat. And then we move on, the car moves on to the next station, and I have to go insert the next driver's side front seat on the next car coming down the assembly line. So in any 8-hour shift, and if that assembly line is moving at X number of feet per minute, it's really easy for me to calculate my labor costs, because I can simply say how far did cars move down that assembly line in that 8-hour shift, how many people are on that assembly line, and simply say how many cars rolled off the assembly line. And through calculations, I can say my labor cost on that assembly line is X amount of dollars by adding everybody up and how many cars rolled off. That's easy to calculate. If I'm making cookies and I'm a baker, I'm not going to do all my mixing and whatnot, put up a tray of cookies, put it in the oven, and stand there and wait. What I'm going to do is start working on the next batch of cookies while I'm baking cookies. I can say in an 8-hour shift, how many dozen cookies could I bake? And adding them all up, saying, okay, fine, I could bake hundreds of dozens of cookies in an 8-hour shift. Therefore, any individual dozen cookies, using math, I can simply calculate how many hours of labor it took me to make 1 dozen cookies. Same thing here. I'm going to look at the list of things that I have, and you notice that they carry forward, just like we said. It's a single entry system. So I'm going to say on this wedding package number 1, how many hours of direct labor did it take me to do this? There's a little tab there, and let's just hover. Enter the number of hours needed to produce this product. So if it took 60 minutes, that's 1 hour. 30 minutes is 0.5 of an hour. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. Right down to 1 minute, which is 0.016 of an hour. So my wedding package is simply, they get married, they come into the studio, I allot 2 hours to shoot the wedding, and they get formals in the studio, and that's it. So that's really easy. That's simply 2 hours. Wedding package number 1. And number 2 would simply be the 2 hours plus I'm going to go to the church. Well, if you look at the church, what is that? The average church service for a wedding might be an hour, a little bit shorter, but then I've got some candids and whatnot at the church right after, so maybe it's an hour and a half. If I consider my drive time, maybe 15 minutes each way, so there's another half hour, so there's 2 hours plus the 2 hours here for a grand total of 4 hours. Wedding package number 3 might be some formals in the park, weather permitting, might take longer to get there, and let's say that I calculate this all out, plus I need an assistant, and that assistant also takes time. It's not just me, it's other people that are there too. If we only are together there for 2 hours, but there's 2 of us, that's 4 hours. So I'm just going to play pretend. Let's say that that's 6 hours, and this one is sort of an all-day thing. part of it was with an assistant, part not. So this is going to take, I'm going to lock away about 12 hours for this. Grad is simply they come in, put up here. So this is a 15-minute thing. So about 2.5. Portrait shooting, about the same. No, it's going to be a bit different, about a half an hour. Boudoir, I might book 3 hours to do that because there are going to be multiple changes of clothing. We have to work with the people regardless. This is what it takes me. Framing is a retail sale. They come and say, oh yes, I want one of these. They grab it off the shelf, they put it in. There's no labor cost for that at all. So I can leave it blank. This is like cost of goods. If there is no cost of goods, then you leave it blank. And if there is no labor, or if I can't tie the labor directly to the sale, I leave it blank. We do have another place for labor. It's a different kind of labor. So this one, I'm going to leave blank. Print packages. There might be a little bit labor attached to this, and this is physically printing. I also might turn around and say, you know, for these packages, there's going to be a minimum amount of Photoshop work. And that Photoshop work is really just to get rid of a redness of a mosquito bite if the bride has a mosquito bite on her arm, or a piece of hair that might come across, or something I'm going to get rid of in the background, a leaf that's sticking, looks like it's sticking out of the groom's ears or something. So from experience that I know that I can roughly go through pictures and do really, really simple things in about 2 or 3 minutes per photo. And if package number 1 is going to have about 15 to 20 photos, that's going to be an hour could be generous on Photoshop and printing. So I'm going to put 1. This is package number 2. I'm going to put 1.5. Package number 3, I'm going to put 3 hours. And this is, it's a 1-for-1. I'm charging out per hour. How many hours am I going to have? 1. So some of these things will have labor, some of them not. But you can see that as I put these things in, it all of a sudden started to add up as to how many hours are required in any given month too. So next I'm going to go down here, and I got these same categories, and I say, what do I pay for this? So let's play pretend. In the event that I go skiing and I twist my ankle and I can't work for a bit, and if I have to hire somebody else to go do that job for me because I can't, what am I going to have to pay them? Well, a wedding photographer, I might have to pay them $30 an hour. So this is going to be about the same for everybody. A grad, this is not nearly as much. I can there's lots of companies that pay high school kids to go through and do certain standard poses. So this is not even that. So I'm going to say $15 an hour. Portrait shooting, same thing. You know what? Let's be generous. $20 an hour. $20 an hour. I want 30. Framing is nothing because there is no labor attached to it. And this is Photoshop work. Photoshop work is a little bit specialized. I might have to pay, let's say, $45 an hour for that. And that 45 is going to be for all of these categories here. Now the only other thing that I have to put in is here, this line here that says, enter the number of hours that management, that's you are the management. So the number of hours that management will work in production each month. This does not include other things like doing books or making sales calls or emptying the garbage or sweeping the floors, all that type of stuff. So hint, 40 hours a week, that's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, is 173.9 hours a month. We're going to break everything down to a monthly time. So you have to think about this for a second. If I'm working full-time in my business and I own the business, there's going to be certain things that I can do, and I might start by doing all of the production. Um, but I'm going to have to dedicate a certain amount of time to the marketing, to the glad handing, to all of those things, to meeting with bankers and whatnot. And I might not be able to work, 179.3 hours, or what did that was 173.9 hours. I might not be able to donate that time. If I work 130 hours, that allows me other time for marketing and phone calls and all of this sort of running of the business stuff. At the beginning, I might have to work more than that. So this is just a number that we're going to play with, and I'm going to say I'm prepared to work 160 hours, 160 hours a month in this area. If I have to do some of that other work in the evening, then I'm prepared to do some of that other work in the evening. And I'm just going to drag this across for year one. Now, what this means is, because I'm doing weddings, you can see that I'm fairly busy here during this season. This is the number of hours that are required to do everything that I said that I needed to do. And right now, there's only 1 month that I can't do it all myself, and that's this month. I said I was prepared to work 160 hours, but I'm required to work 167 and a half. That means that I have to hire somebody for this month. I have to hire them for 7.5 hours. That's really 1 day out of the entire month. And I'm going to pay them $261. Number of employees needed. This is not even enough to be classified as one employee. But let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's say that I said that I could only work 120 hours because I had lots of other things to do inside the business. Well, at this point, now there are, and it's right here, there's 4 months that I'm going to need to hire staff, somebody to sort of fill in, to the tune of 14 and a half hours. Up to here is 47 and a half hours, 39 and a half hours. So this is the equivalent of 0.1 of a full-time person. This is the equivalent of a 0.3 of a full-time person. So this is, like, so far I can do everything. And I might be able to say, oh yeah, it's Christmas season or it's a busy season. Tax accountants have their busy season in April, where you just don't talk to them because they're busy and they're working around the clock. And it's easy to say, oh yes, for these months I'm prepared to work 180 hours. That's not a problem. And there I can look after everything myself. So this tells you, and this will let you know when you have to hire staff and when you can do it yourself, or pretty much when you can do it yourself. There are some things that might be a two-man job, and when you have to hire somebody for that, that can come out of here, but not necessarily. And we can look at that someplace else. But I'll show you something. If I go back to the sales, and let's play pretend, let's say that my wedding package number 4 gets really, really popular because I'm doing something really, really different, and it's very unique and people really, really like it, and I get 5 of those booked, and I'm just going to drag that across there and say even in the April, May, and June, all of a sudden I'm doing 10 of those and 15 and 20 and now back to 15. I've simply changed my sales, and now let's look at my cost of direct labor. All of a sudden I need 240 hours for that job alone. So all of a sudden 380, well, I can't do that no matter what. Even if I want to work overtime, I can't work that much overtime. That is the equivalent of 1.2 full-time people. So that's more than double time for me, and I'm already working full time. So you can see the amount of, this tells me when I have to hire staff, how much I'm going to pay them, and I need to say my average production time right there is based upon this, and this is the amount of money that I better be prepared to pay them at the end of those particular months. Again, this is if your sales can be tied directly to, if your labor costs can be tied directly to your sales. If it can't, leave it blank. If I'm totally retail, if I'm something like a 7-Eleven, then and I need to pay for somebody to sit behind the counter and take the money when they come through, those sales cannot be tied directly to the cost. That labor cannot be tied directly to the sales. I have to pay for somebody to be there, and if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and 2 people an hour come through and get a cinnamon bun and a cup of coffee versus versus drive time at 7 o'clock in the morning when 200 people an hour, I'm paying exactly the same labor for dramatically different sales. So that labor bill cannot be tied to the sales, and we will use a different sheet for that. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask or view this again, and I'll see you in the next video.